Welcome to Meet, Act, and Part, a Masonic podcast hosted by Midnight Freemasons Greg Knott, Darin, Todd Creason, and Bill Hostler. The views, opinions and experiences that are expressed by the hosts or guests as individual Freemasons do not reflect the official position of any Grand Lodge, appendant body, or Masonic authority to which the hosts or guests belong. And now on with the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Meet, Act, and Part. And we are your hosts. I am Greg Knott.
And I'm Bill Hostler.
And I'm Darin. And with us today is a very good friend of mine, Sotiris Sakellarios. Sotiris lives in Athens, Greece, and we're going to talk all about Freemasonry in Greece today. But Sotiris, why don't you give us a little bit of your Masonic background if you could?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sotiris, and, I got initiated in the craft back in 2005, coming down a line of 5 generations of Masons in my family. So, I was initiated at Parthenon Lodge 112 under the Grand Lodge of Greece. That's the main English-speaking lodge. There's another one in Corfu in Athens, Greece. And we work Scottish Standard Ritual. I was passed, raised, and in 2017, I was installed as Right Worshipful Master since we were Scottish Standard. Up to 2019, we have 2-year terms. I'm also an affiliated member of Internet Lodge 9659 under the United Grand Lodge of England. I'm a very active Royal Archmason. We work the York Rite in Greece, so I've gotten all the intermediate capitular, cryptic, and chivalric degrees. So I've also done Royal and Select Masters, Knights of Malta, Knights Templar, and Knight Templar Priest. I'm very passionate about my British Masonic heritage, being initiated, passed, and raised in a British ritual, and actively participating in an English lodge with an English ritual. And, of course, I'm very familiar with the ins and outs of Greek Freemasonry, which I've been serving for the past 15 years or so.
So Terry, why don't you give us maybe as brief as you can history of Greek Freemasonry?
All right. Well, Greeks have been Masons for centuries. I mean, from pretty much the establishment of official Freemasonry, 1717, because, of course, it had been going on long before that. We've had Greeks in England, France, Romania, Moldavia, Hungary, and what today is the Czech Republic and Austria, participating in lodges, actively becoming masters, so on and so forth. Some of these Greeks actually formed the Philikieteria, which is the friendly society, who were the spark for the Greek Revolution for independence from the Ottoman Empire. In Greece, in the Greek vicinity, Freemasonry started operating in the late 1700s, early 1800s, in the Ionian Islands, which at the time were under a Venetian regime. One of the first lodges was Phoenix Lodge Number 1, which was one of the founding lodges of the Grand Orient of Greece in 1811. That later on developed into the Grand Lodge of Greece, of course. Our first Grand Master was a member of the Friendly Society I mentioned earlier, Dionysius Ramus, followed by Count Rodokanakis, who was an English count, but he was very passionate about French Freemasonry. So he was initiated, passed, and raised in England, but then he received all the Scottish Rite degrees in France and the States, and brought the Scottish Rite to Greece. So back in the day, Freemasonry in Greece worked from the first degree all the way to the 33rd degree. Eventually, this changed when we became the Grand Lodge of Greece, which worked continental ritual, of course, with some lodges working British rituals such as emulation or Scottish Standard, which my mother lodge works today, coming in and out depending on waning or gaining membership. And but these never stuck. until 1952 when my Mother Lodge was actually founded, with founding members coming from the Grand Lodge of Scotland, Grand Lodge of England, and several American brethren who at the time worked for the American base in Athens. Going all the way up to 1986, the Grand Lodge of Greece was already working 3 degrees in craft, and the Supreme Grand, what's the title for the Scottish Rite body? Supreme Grand, not the Supreme Grand Commander.
Council.
Yeah, the 33rd degree was working the rest of the remaining 31 degrees. Now, some brothers had established Royal Arch chapters and Knight Templar commanderies working in a clandestine way separately from the Grand Lodge of Greece in Athens. At the time, the Grand Master wasn't too keen on that. So basically, he worked out this decree saying that brethren not working the 3 degrees and the Royal Arch, working other degrees and other Masonic orders besides the 3 degrees and the Royal Arch, were to face dire consequences, even expulsion from the craft. This was not taken kindly from several brethren, particularly brethren from our lodge, from my Mother Lodge, and a couple of other lodges, who broke away and in 1986 formed the National Grand Lodge of Greece, which was modeled after the United Grand Lodge of England's constitutions. Most of the National Grand Lodge of Greece lodges worked emulation ritual, either mainly in Greek and a couple in English. And one of them still works Scottish Standard to the day, but it's in Greek, which is kind of weird. Anyways, during this time, things were kind of shaky in the Grand Lodge of Greece. We didn't know where we stood, right? A lot of brethren either went into an inactive status or were less than happy when participating in lodge because they were denied the opportunity to work the Royal Arch and KT, basically, which were the 2 big things. My dad included, by the way. So eventually, the Grand Lodge of Greece came to take dispensation from the Grand Chapter, Grand Commandery, from the York Rite, basically, in the States, and we formed the York Rite and the Grand Lodge of Greece. Meanwhile, the National Grand Lodge of Greece worked its own independent AASR council, Royal Arch chapter, not York Rite type, but English type Royal Arch. Same went for Royal Select Masters and KT. And they also added, they worked Mark separately with the appendant Royal Arch Mariners along. So we had 2 different lines of Masonry, both 100% regular, don't get me wrong. Both the National Grand Lodge and the Grand Lodge of Greece abide 100% by the ancient landmarks. Of course, there's a bunch of other Masonic powers, let's say, of Coed Masonry and Grand Orients and irregular Masonic powers that have been working since then. There was even an effort to unite the 2 Grand Lodges with the United Grand Lodge of Greece, which never really happened. Now, during the 90s, the Grand Lodge of Greece lost recognition from the United Grand Lodge of England, which was handed to the National Grand Lodge of Greece. It was at that time when we empowered the York Rite, basically showing a more international face in our Masonic approach. So, in due time, we regained recognition, and the Grand Lodge of the National Grand Lodge lost it, which is kind of funny because right now the National Grand Lodge has recognition from the Grand Lodges of Ireland and Scotland, but not from the United Grand Lodge of England, which is given to the Grand Lodge of Greece. Generally, this is something that very much displeases all regular Greek Masons. We all want to be part of the same thing. We're brothers, we're regular, and, have some really good friends in National Grand Lodge. And even this week, I'm going to be going out with them. So it's kind of funny and sad at the same time that we have to go undercover to visit each other's lodges. Anyway, so that is pretty much the story of the main story of the Grand Lodge of Greece and the National Grand Lodge of Greece. Now, as I mentioned before, there's other Masonic orders and bodies such as the Le Droit Humain. There's another co-ed Masonic body called Delphi, which I think is about to be absorbed into the Le Droit Humain. We do have women's Freemasonry, but they're not affiliated to the OWF or the HFAF, which is kind of funny because even though they're not, as the United Grand Lodge of England says, they are regular in every sense, but they're not affiliated to these bodies which are in amity with the United Grand Lodge of England. We do use their buildings for our meetings. Some lodges do meet in their premises because they have, really nice temples and stuff. So, for example, our Knight Templar priests, two of our tabernacles works in one of those buildings. And so there's women Freemasons, there's co-ed Freemasons, there's us, and then there's the Grand Orient, which goes all the way from 1 to 33. And they're modeled after the Grand Orient of France. They also accept atheists. Belief in a supreme being is not a prerequisite, sadly, in my humble opinion. And that pretty much sums up the... There's some other independent Masonic bodies as well, but there's quite a few of those, and I really couldn't name most of those. There's a couple of research lodges that accept both men and women, but they don't belong in an actual Masonic order or body. So things are really interesting in Greece. Let me just put it that way. We have the two main branches working the core craft degrees and Masonic orders. A lot of brethren also belong in English lodges as well, in either Cyprus or the UK. And this helps them complete their Masonic experience. And it also has helped both the National Grand Lodge and the Grand Lodge of Greece expand into other side orders. For example, now we officially work Knight Templar priests and Allied Masonic degrees, Pilgrim Preceptors, and the Masonic Order of Athelstan, while the National Grand Lodge also works Knight Masons, Red Cross of Constantine, and the Secret Monitor and Scarlet Court. So that's pretty much the setting of Freemasonry in Greece.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is. I try to keep it as simple as possible, but it's not that easy.
So Terry, why don't you tell us about your mother lodge, because it is, as you told us, I think pre-program, one of two English-speaking lodges underneath the Grand Lodge of Greece. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's us and Lord Byron Lodge in Corfu, but they're in Corfu. They're not metropolitan. We're the only one in Athens. And then there's a couple of other ones under the National Grand Lodge. There's a Parthenon Lodge, which is an offshoot of our Parthenon Lodge. We're 112, they're Parthenon number 3, which is basically the guys that broke off and started the National Grand Lodge. And then there's another couple of lodges, Empedocles Lodge. They work Scottish Standard, but they do it in Greek, I think. And there's another one in English, but I couldn't tell you much about that. I need to ask more about that and get back to you.
For our listeners, what are the main differences between, let's say, the Scottish ritual and the emulation ritual that the lodges under UGLE usually work? Okay.
That's, of course, always keeping away from the actual secrets. I'll try to give you some pointers, and then I'll give you some on the continental Scottish ritual, which is where things are totally different. So, Scottish Standard Ritual, which is basically best practices of Scottish rituals, because in Scotland, no two lodges work exactly the same way. But Scottish Standard Ritual is best practices ritual mainly designed for overseas lodges under the Grand Lodge of Scotland. We're very similar to mainstream English rituals. Normally, the temple layout is slightly different, which means that we have the altar in the middle of the temple and the tracing boards in front of the master. The main officers are more or less in the same position, except in some lodges where they have them. For example, there's this one lodge working in Edinburgh, and actually in the same building as Edinburgh Mary's Chapel number 1. They have the junior and senior warden on each side of the entrance, right across in the west, right across from the worshipful master, the right worshipful master, which is kind of, weird because that's how the ancients used to do it, and the ancients Grand Lodge, the Athol Grand Lodge of the United Grand Lodge of the now United Grand Lodge of England. Now, Scottish Standard is, I'd say, the main parts of the ritual are, about 95% identical word-wise. There are some differences, but I'd say the biggest difference comes in third degree. During the raising, we actually you have the master in the middle, you have the wardens on each side of the master, the candidate laid in front of him, of course, and the deacons forming an equilateral triangle, right? And then we also have 10 brothers standing around in a circle. Now, each time the master attempts to raise the candidate, they preambulate around the triangle in a circle around the triangle, which is very interesting. And under the sign of an entered apprentice, a fellow craft, and then the sign of sorrow and distress. Now, this is very interesting in my humble opinion, because this ties in very nicely with the Royal Arch, because you have a circle around the triangle, which cannot be completed, of course. This triangle and the second triangle cannot come about because Hiram Biff is gone. But it's very interesting because it also means that you're halfway there. You haven't learned the secret of the Royal Arch because you can, because of the loss of our master on one hand. On the other hand, though, you can see that that's where you're headed. I mean, after all, the two intertwining triangles of the Royal Arch, the Star of David, basically, is as above, so below. What happens in the physical realm happens in the spiritual realm, and so on and so forth. So when the representative of our master, of our slain master, is laid in front of us, basically that's his terrestrial form. And, after his death, the only place he can go to learn the secrets, the true secrets of Master Mason, is the Royal Arch. So that was some thoughts I've been having about this whole thing and about connections between the craft and Royal Arch. But yeah, that's the main thing. And also in installation, in the States, you have the virtual past master, but in the British Isles, there's a very specific installation ceremony for the Right Worshipful Master and for the Worshipful Master in English lodges. And this includes, of course, signs, words, and tokens. And without going into detail, because I can't really go into detail, anyways, the thing is that the Scots have a longer version than the English, which is interesting. It's a longer story. Afterwards, when we go off the record, I can share more about that.
I was going to ask Sotiris, how is education treated in Greece? Because I know that you personally have a lot of educational presentations that you give to various lodges under the UGLE and elsewhere. But are you kind of a rare breed over there, or is education embraced by every lodge?
Oh no, it's very different from England because we don't really get lodges of instruction that set lodges of instruction in a very uniform way. But all Masons are expected, well, not all, but anyone that's actually interested definitely comes up with a paper to hand in. Some they do their research, write down their talks, their lectures. Sadly, most of those I probably wouldn't even call Masonic, but whatever rocks someone's boat. If they want to combine ancient Greece to Freemasonry or whatever, that's their cup of tea, not mine. But anyways, the thing is, it happens a lot. A lot of Greek Masons research a lot, try to find connections, sadly, between ancient Greece and Freemasonry, besides the basic stuff that we're all familiar with, such as the orders of architecture and the Pythagorean theorem and Euclides. But, they go all out, even making outrageous claims such as the fact that Freemasonry originates from the Eleusinian mysteries and so on and so forth. So my answer would have to be yes, it is embraced and it is practiced a lot. A lot of brothers, spend a lot of time and a lot of research in their Freemasonry. If you ask my humble opinion on it, not always in the right direction because, when you throw in quantum physics and ancient Greece and whatever, it kind of, it's kind of outrageous, basically. But that's just me. I'm a very peculiar system of morality, veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols kind of guy.
I had the opportunity to visit Greece maybe a decade ago. So I pulled up my pictures just to refresh my memory. It's been a while. But I guess, when you were talking about so many people or a few people are trying to connect ancient Greece and maybe that mythology to the evolution of modern Freemasonry, it struck me though that every day that it's those old sites are staring you right in the face. And I guess what struck me, the difference between Greece and the United States was just, you're so much older than us in terms of a country. And so you've got all that history and so much of it's been preserved. And we went to Delos and Santorini and so, some of the tourist spots. But I guess, and again, I was looking at those ruins, the pictures I had, and there was archways in there. And so I guess I could see where they're trying to make that connection. But like you say, it's probably more from the architectural standpoint than maybe the mythology standpoint. But I guess, do you embrace that old history or is that just too much looking backwards and you're looking forward? There's just so much beauty over there. And it just, I don't know if you know it when you're living there every day kind of thing. I know here you don't sometimes see what's in your own backyard when it's right there with you. But do you have a sense of that history or how's it go?
Yeah, definitely. Well, you do take it for granted from time to time. I mean, I've only been at the Acropolis like a handful of times, and I've lived here like pretty much all my life besides a couple of years in England. But it's there, and I'm not one of those. I'm not crazy nationalistic or whatever. I appreciate what I've been handed down culturally, and don't get me wrong here. It's just that I separate it from Freemasonry. As I said, I treat Freemasonry and particularly craft Freemasonry as a peculiar system of morality, and that's it. When you go into the side orders, you can get a lot more philosophical. I was a very good friend and brother of mine was over from England last October, and we went to the Cave of Pan in Delphi, and that was a mind-blowing experience. And I'd love to take you guys when you're over, because that's stuff tourists don't normally see, and that's where you get some really good glimpses into the arcane and more esoteric ancient Greek heritage. But on the other hand, I like and respect and enjoy that, but I keep it separate from Freemasonry. To me, Freemasonry is it's something that was given to us by the Scots, basically in the Middle Ages. Builders of churches, Christians that were open-minded enough in a very narrow-minded time to accept all creeds, all nationalities as their equal. So, and I think that's the magic of Freemasonry, being on the level, accepting everyone as your brother, regardless of what they believe, what they wear, what they do, what color their skin is, whatever. So that's why I stick to the more moral aspect of Freemasonry. On the other hand, I also love the esoteric part, but that's a different thing. That's the side orders. Now I heard this funny story that one of our, I'm not going to go into any detail, a grand officer of the Grand Lodge of Greece was thinking of finding a Greek myth for the Royal Arch myth, and to make a drama out of that, and a Royal Arch exaltation out of that. Now, I think that's ridiculous. I mean, I understand the symbolism, and it's really nice to be able to explain it, but to actually go into make ritual, that's just plain out blasphemy, in my humble opinion. Anyways, but yeah, going back to what Greg was saying, it's here. A lot of us appreciate it, and I'm always big on preserving culture, and I think that's a very important thing that religion did for Greece during the Ottoman occupation. I'm very open-minded about religion, but I have to give the Greek Orthodox religion that thing, that it preserved the Greek culture and things that were handed down from the Byzantine times and from the Hellenistic times before that. It's here. It's all around us, and there's stuff that everybody knows and everybody has seen, and there's stuff that I'd love to take you and show you.
Especially with the Greek Lodge. The average Greek, the man who works in a store or something, if he wants to become a Freemason, what is the process he goes through, and how does he become one? And what would be the average dues?
Sure. Okay. So a gentleman is is knocking on the door of the lodge, right? How do we treat him? Well, if he knows a brother, then no problem. We'll screen him, of course, see if he's actually morally up to it. And if he is, he'll go through the normal balloting process, interviewing and everything. And then when the time comes, he around a month or two after balloting, we can initiate it. Actually, the whole process could take from anywhere from 2 months to 6 months. Well, now with COVID, it's a lot worse, of course. But anyways, we're not even sure when we're going to open again. But it's a 3 to 6 month time frame. The costs, it's costly. I mean, to initiate someone, the annual fees are around 230, 240 euros per lodge per year. So they need to pay that plus initiation fees, which are around 700-800 euros. So it's around $1,000 to get initiated. Then another 600 to get passed, and another 600 to get raised, 600 or 700 to get raised. So to be affiliated with a Greek lodge, you need 200 euros for the affiliation, and to be reinstated, another 200. That's more or less what it costs. The Grand Lodge fees are 180 euros per year, but in order for the lodge to financially make it, we push it up to, depends, from 210 to 250 euros per lodge.
So I'm curious, how many members are in your lodge, as an example?
Yeah. Well, okay. Overall in Greece, there's around 4,000 active Freemasons in the Grand Lodge of Greece. Our lodge, which is a medium-sized lodge, is we have 49 active members, of which 25 are very frequent and active.
So Thierry, you'll kind of find this, I guess, a little humorous. We have arguments at our Grand Lodge here often regarding raising per capita, which is what we pay to the Grand Lodge. Each lodge pays a certain amount per member to the Grand Lodge, and we just had a increase of $10, so I think it's now a total of $35 per Mason per lodge here. So the sticker shock for a lot of the American Masons when you say that, I think would be pretty huge, but at the same time, a lot of us, I think, feel that the brand of Masonry that you guys practice is one that some of us aspire to do. So I think I would gladly pay much more if we could have festive boards and if we did Masonry more of the, I guess, Scottish or English way.
Okay. Yeah, that was kind of what my thought process was asking the question is I'm thinking that one would pay that kind of money to just become a Mason. You're going to be a lot more serious about it, and you're going to want to be a Mason, and you're going to be more active. But I was also wondering about how much time do you have to put in between degrees before you're passed and raised, and are there any other requirements during that time that you have to do before you're ready to level up, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a real good question. First of all, on your first point, yeah, that was exactly what Grand Lodge was going for, because they increased the fees. They're like, okay, we have a lot of people interested. Let's make sure it's people that are actually worth it and really into it and really want to, give in the elbow grease. So that was exactly what Grand Lodge was going for. So there was an actual rationale to that. Now, on the other hand, I paid like £80 for my English lodge every year, so it's a fraction of the price. Anyways, going back to what you were saying, first degree to second degree, you have to have at least 1 year apart, plus a total of 50% plus 1 meetings. Now, that may not sound a lot, but in Greece, we have 2 meetings, 2 to 3. Well, our lodge has 2 meetings a month. Most Greek lodges have 3 to 4. So it's quite a lot of time you need to dedicate. Now, from the second to the third degree, you need approximately 6 months of Masonic activity, which means if you get passed in May and then we close down in June, you have to start counting from September again. So you could do it in a total of 1.5 years. That's how long it took me, by the way, which was kind of cool back then.
Everything in the States, we have to do it fast. We have to do it in volume. So what you've described between the monetary contribution and cheap. And so it's just a 180. I think what Darin was saying, so many of us would probably try to strive for what you're doing there. And I like the fact that there's a deliberate amount of time in between your degrees so that the candidate can learn and participate and do their work and whatnot. I mean, I've seen here, we try to rush you through as soon as possible in some circumstances, and I don't think that helps our retention because so many will come to their first meeting or two, and we don't see them again. What's your retention like with new members?
Oh, I'd say it's anywhere from like 30 to 50% tops, because you have a lot of people, coming in. We have one brother in our lodge, and I'm not very keen on calling him a brother, but he is, who actually said that he was expecting to see something out of a movie with people driving Lamborghinis and having extravagant parties. We're like, dude, nobody told you there's stuff like that, like settle down, But sadly, there's a lot of people that are expecting that, or they're expecting something like they're going to become super rich and powerful and all that crap you see in all those bogus Illuminati advertising on the internet. And they just flake out because they're not finding what they're looking for, which makes sense.
There's a lot of brethren here in the U.S. that really think that the way that they do it in Europe is the proper way, that to have the higher dues and to have a waiting period between degrees and more education is a better way to retain brothers and to make a quality of experience and make happier Masons. And we're all curious about festive boards. We don't have them over here in America, maybe once a year if you're lucky. The question I'm going to ask is, do the Greeks have taverns and bars attached to their buildings like they do in Great Britain? And do they have festive boards?
Yeah. Well, most, if not all, but most of our Masonic halls have an appendant tavern or restaurant. So that's really convenient because, all lodges can go there. The food's usually crap though. But it's very convenient because you can actually go straight from the meeting. You don't have to leave a building. You just go downstairs and you dine. And what's really cool is that in one of the buildings here in northern Athens, in one of the northern suburbs here in Kephysia, after the meeting, their festive board is actually done. Everybody gets served, of course. But then the master asks each and every brother to comment on the workings, on the labors of the evening, whether it be a ritual or a talk, which is really cool because, of course, you get to listen to a lot of bull, but there's some really interesting points, and you can learn a lot of interesting things, even from entered apprentices that just joined. So it's that's really exciting, and that's actually one of my favorite things. I love, and that can drag on down to like 1 or 2 a.m. So it's fun, get your beers, whiskey, and drag on.
Yeah. What do you? I mean, if I'm a prospective member, what is it you personally tell me? Why would I want to be a part of Freemasonry in Greece? It's kind of what we call the elevator speech, that short explanation. What is it you tell somebody? Why, if they're not looking for the Lamborghinis and all that kind of nonsense, what is it you're telling them?
Yeah, I'm gonna let you down here because with all this fee increase and everything, I've been personally kind of bummed about Freemasonry in Greece. So I basically tell people to go do it in England. It'll be cheaper for them, much cheaper, or in Cyprus in an English lodge. But yeah, okay. Obviously, my closest friends that have joined the craft, they know I'm a Mason. They've known I'm a Mason. They know it's out there for them. And when the time comes, I always throw Freemasonry into the mix, with a Trojan horse, throwing some esotericism, and then bam, Freemasonry. So basically what I just give them the real story about it, that I've gained some really, really good friends over time and all over the world, that this thing works it's something that unless you're in, you don't really get it. I mean, there's people that I've known for 6 months that are some of my closest friends. And there's people that I've known for 15 years that are also some of my close friends, and they're all Masons. And it works like a catalyst for bonding among people. So that's something unique. I have not encountered that anywhere else. Of course, the pursuit of truth, that's up to each and every individual. And if somebody's more esoterically inclined or more metaphysically inclined, they can always do that. And then there's relief. And relief to me is the most magical thing about Freemasonry. It's not charity. Charity you can find anywhere. Relief is different. So back during the last months of my mastership, there was this girl we heard about she had a terminal disease. I can't remember what exactly it was. She's probably not with us anymore. And one of our past masters proposed we make a donation of 300 euros. He's like, and you know what? It's not going to do anything for her health. We just want her to feel better. Relief. That's the essence of relief. We want her to go out and have a nice meal or shop something nice so she can feel good. And that's a pretty good sales pitch for prospective brethren. I mean, anyone that has a moral bone in their body will get, their eyes wet from that story. And it always gets me. So that pretty much sums up what I give somebody that's interested or that has a perspective in becoming interested. Without pushing, of course. We never push. It's always voluntarily of their own free will and accord. Would you want to tell you some things about Greek ritual, by the way? It's very continental, right? So it's basically French-born. But particularly in the second degree, they've thrown in some Greek elements. So when they're, are you familiar with continental ritual?
I'm not at all.
Okay. Well, let's take it from the top. First degree. It's a lot fancier than what I was used to when I got initiated. Then I started visiting Greek lodges and I freaked out. I was like, what the hell is going on here? They have like swords with flaming swords and stuff. They don't get to see the light in the light. They get to see it in the darkness. And they have these swords pointing at them. So it's really fancy. They have like stuff that's, I've heard you can see it in other side orders, more esoteric side orders, more Rosicrucian ones. They have these trials based on the elements in the first degree. So they have fire, they have water, and they have air. And they have the earth, of course. No talk of the void. But they do that using cups with water, this altar with burning sulfur. So it's really fancy. It's out there. Nothing like what I was used to. But that too, in my humble opinion, is very sways away from what I personally perceive as Freemasonry. Then in the second degree, that's where they get all their working tools. And there's just 5 of those. No, three sets of 3. So they get 5 working tools, and they get told about the 5 philosophers of Greece, which is something that was actually, from what I've heard, they started it here, and some lodges abroad have been adopting it. Continental lodge. The second degree is tedious as hell in continental masonry. It's my favorite degree in British ritual, but it's oh god, I can't stand the Greek version. Anyways, and then you have the third degree. Now the third degree. How do I perceive what the French did to British ritual was they took the third degree and they lopped a part of it into their second degree. No, sorry, they lopped a part of the second degree into their third degree, because a Mason in Greek ritual only gets to hear about King Solomon's temple and about the middle chamber in the third degree. That's where they hear about Hiram Abiff, Hiram of Tyre, and King Solomon for the first time in the third. And then they even call the third degree the middle chamber. Then after the entire ceremony is done, they just stop there. They don't explain that the secrets are substitutes. They don't do anything. They do just part of the traditional history. They explain how Hiram Abiff was interred under a bush, not a sprig of acacia. So they changed that too. And then the Frenchies stretched the third degree into the 4th, 7th, and 9th of what today is the Scottish Rite, where you learn that the secret is lost, that they went after Hiram Abiff's the culprits anyways, and what happened to them after that. So that is the 3 degrees in a nutshell. There's a lot of differences in the grip signs and tokens in continental masonry and Greek masonry. Funny enough, there was this Lewis Masonic documentary on the Illuminati, which had several similarities to what I've experienced in Greek Freemasonry craft ritual. So that's pretty much my experience. I'm not a huge fan of it. I have to say that. I'm glad I know it because it gives me more well-rounded understanding of what's happening in my native land. But I personally think it's kind of sketchy.
What do you see as the future of Freemasonry in Greece?
Ooh, good question. The future. Well, if people don't make it interesting, and if the fees keep skyrocketing, it's going to die out. Well, it's never going to die out entirely, but it's going to wane like it does in other places in the world. Now, right now, it hasn't really received a significant blow in Greece. The numbers are pretty steady, and they have been for the past 2 decades or so, which is pretty good, taking into account the global picture. On the other hand, standards have dropped considerably. You have under or uneducated people joining. We even had like hardcore nationalists joining, a couple of whom were eventually struck off the roll of the Grand Lodge of Greece. They just weren't screened properly beforehand. So I know that I've personally seen it that non-suitable candidates don't join. Because I think that it's not a matter of volume and quantity, it's a matter of quality. If you get better people in the craft and you make it more interesting, it's going to eventually draw the right kind of people. So is it a bad thing that membership is waning globally, or is it just an indication that there's more of a turn to quality? I don't know. That's a question I've been asking myself lately. But that's pretty much how I see it in Greece as well.
No, I think I agree with you on the quality over the quantity. I mean, you certainly need a nucleus of numbers to have a lodge, but and Darin, yeah, I mean, and we've seen it here. Darin and I've talked about it at length about how much do you guard the West Gate and not let some of those people in, but we all seem to be desperate for numbers, and in the end, they don't stay anyway. So we didn't really gain anything, and so. I think there's just this, I think we're in this transition phase. More people will seek us out if they find what they're looking for. And we have to give them what they're looking for, not the Lamborghinis and all that, but the philosophical, the brotherhood piece that we tell people this is what we do, but we don't live up to our own billing. And I think until we get to that stage, we're going to have a revolving door or revolving gate in some cases because people are going to be disappointed. At the other hand, what I also see, though, is a lot of people, they'll come in and to learn the philosophy and all that, you're not always going to find it in a lodge meeting, as we all know. So you have to go out and do your own work. And I'm not sure a lot of people will go out and do the work but yet there's more educational platforms now than any point in time in Masonic history. And so it's there. But so I agree with you on the quality piece because that's the better experience than the quantity, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally. And I know, as you said, Freemasonry isn't something you do in lodge. It's something you are. And the more of us realize that, the better off we're all going to be. And that's something that be the example you want people of what you want people to see in Freemasonry and what you want people to be inspired from in Freemasonry. That's very key. You see, I mean, right now I'm sitting here in a room in Athens, Greece, and I'm chatting away with 3 of my brothers in the States, and this is just amazing. I'm so happy I'm doing this right now, and more people can get to experience this. I mean, you guys are my brothers, and I take brotherly love very seriously, believe you me. The more people that realize that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves, an international institution, basically. Not in the wrong sense of the word institution, but well, it could be in my case. But it's magical. It's beautiful. And that's what we need to carry on as a torch of Freemason.
Here in America, Masons, we tend to put our square and compasses on everything. Hats, T-shirts, on our cars. Some even put them on their houses. And we're very outward with our membership. We put our logo on everything. And I know in other places, like say in the UK, they're a little more restrained, mostly because of the media and what they've portrayed the Masons to be like over the years. They tend to be a little more subdued, and they keep their membership a little more quiet. In Greece, are the membership pretty outward about their Masonic membership, or do they tend to be like the European brethren in England and that, and keep their membership a little quiet and just keep it to themselves?
Okay, that's okay. Most of there's Freemasonry is massively taboo in Greece because of the predominance of the Greek Orthodox Church. However, it's coming out of the closet slowly and steadily. Speaking of pride, I'm all out as a Mason. I mean, all of my friends know I'm a Mason. People at work know I'm a Mason. But when I'm in a suit at a business meeting, I'll wear my forget-me-not. I won't wear squares and compasses. I won't stuff it in someone's face. But I'll wear a forget-me-not or the wear large tau or the sprig of acacia. So I'll be subtle and I'll do that. And a lot of brothers do that. Now, not many people in Greece go all out, meaning wearing baseball caps, T-shirts, and jackets and everything. I do sometimes. I don't really care, but most people in Greece don't, and that's because they don't know how to back it up. Basically, they don't know, and that's because of the continental ritual, in my humble opinion. Because in English-speaking ritual, we know ourselves to be Freemasons. In continental ritual, when the senior warden asks the worshipful master, master asks the senior warden, "Are you Freemason, brother so and so?" He's like, "My brethren know me to be one." So, even from the very foundation of the ritual during opening, they're taught to be extra cautious, not in the sense that we do. So they don't. It's not part of the Masonic culture to openly declare it in continental Europe. In England, I'd say it's a lot more relaxed than it was 10 years ago, because you have the widow's sons wearing their squares and compasses on their biker jackets, and now you have the ambulances, and you have the Enough is Enough movement, which the Grand Lodge of England started a while back. And so the English brothers are more relaxed with their Masonic identity from what they were a while ago. Now, in Greece, not so much. Not so much.
Bill, Greg, any other questions for Sotiris?
No, I've learned a lot. It's so interesting to hear a different perspective than just what we have locally or even just our normal internet stuff that you hear. But yet it's still the same. And I think, Sotiris, that's what you've emphasized is the brotherhood, regardless of, how many oceans or continents we are apart. In the end, that's what it's all about. The ritual and all that are just means to translate a message, but in the end, it's about the brotherhood. And for me, that's always been the biggest part of Freemasonry, is enjoying that. So really have enjoyed meeting you and learning about the Greek Freemasonry system.
It's been a great pleasure, and I'd love to meet you guys in person as soon as this COVID crap is over. I mean, it's been great, and I just met Bill and Greg, and they're my brothers. I'm really happy for that, and I'm pretty sure we're all going to keep in touch. And at some point in the future, we're going to happily meet and go to a lodge. I'd love to take you guys to a Greek lodge meeting and show you those those initiations and everything. And I'd love to take you to all the sites and the better sites, the non-touristy ones as well. But yeah, as you said, we're all brothers. The core is the same, and the differences are what makes everything worth it and interesting, pretty much.
Would love to come back. Greece is a beautiful country. Even just the tourist things I saw, and the Greek people were very friendly, and it was an amazing trip when I was there. So I hope we do get to make that trip at some point.
Awesome.
I just want to thank you, brother, for being on the show, especially since it's so late there in Greece. And I just find this fascinating. Not long ago, we were able to speak with a brother from England, and he discussed and explained to us how they practice Freemasonry in the UGLE. And now we've got to learn how Freemasonry is practiced in Greece. And I really hope the listeners get as much from this as we do, because it's just so interesting as we get to see the differences, how things are done across the globe compared to the way we do things here in the United States. And I really hope we can do this again, and we can further explore this. And I hope you'll come on our show again when we can talk more about this, because I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
It's all right. It's 10 o'clock. It's not that late. By the way, my English lodge has a huge membership from overseas brothers, and I'd love to bring you guys in touch with other countries as well.
We'll definitely talk about that, Sotiris. And I just wanted to thank you again for coming on, agreeing to come on. I know we haven't known each other that long, but to me, you're already a good friend and brother. So thank you again for coming on. And for our listeners, thank you for listening to another episode of Meet, Act, and Part. Have a good evening.
Thank you for listening to Meet, Act, and Part. For more information about our show, visit our website at www.meetactandpart.com. While there, please consider supporting the show by sponsoring us on Patreon. Until we meet again, may we meet, act, and part.